Hello, otakus. Welcome to a special edition of OTG. Today we're taking a break from the comic battles and we are going to do some analytics on my collection. And before we get to that, though, I want to express my support for the people of Ukraine. They'll be suffering in the coming months and years based on this conflict. I also want to condemn Russia. Russia deserves the utmost condemnation and punishment for its aggression against a peaceful nation. I really hope for a quick end to this conflict and a return to the Ukrainian system of government, and their people can go back to their homes. But I anticipate that will not happen anytime soon. I really hope that at the end of this conflict, though, that the Putin regime is weakened and destroyed. The U.S. has to do more to stop Russia, and I really want to see more actions against Putin's inner circle because he has to be stopped. I mean, this is really tragic and an unfortunate series of events. So we're just taking a break from my comic battle videos, and really the purpose of this video is to take a look at my collection from a data analytical standpoint. I tabulated my comic collection into a spreadsheet, and then I use that spreadsheet to perform some analysis and kind of see where my collection is. And I'm just going to share that with you, and hopefully this can inspire you to do the same. I found that the analysis helped me focus, really focus on where I should focus my energies, the areas where I should focus my energies in terms of collecting. So I'm just going to share my screen here with you. Okay, so we're going to start with the data first. And this is essentially the data I collected. And what I did was there's a lot of interesting data and resources on the internet, and I just pulled some spreadsheets off the different publishers and the titles and all the data. So you get, when it was published, as well as like complete runs and variant covers and whatnot. And this is data compiled from, the earliest stage of comics all the way to 2021. So a lot of this data is, just recent. And for example, here are some Marvel titles. Here are some DC titles. And I use this spreadsheet to create my own checklist of items I want. Now I'll be, based on my analysis, I realize there's some areas where I need to focus. And so I'm going to be revising this checklist a little bit. And then I think also I'm going to focus more on key issues. And so I'll revise it to reflect that as well. But here's my current collection. And as you can see, we have, the number of copies of each title I have, the issue number, the variant cover, publisher, age, and down the list, even including all the creatives that worked on the book. Another thing I want to point out is I also focused on key issues, and pull it over here. You can see there's different keys the details related to that key. For example, I have the first Black Adam, Superman, and Shazam cover. That's DC Comics Presents 49, the first time they're on a cover together. So a little information like that, I just like to put in the spreadsheet as well. And what I did with this data is I just kind of built some charts here, and we're going to go over this chart in more detail in a presentation I presented. So if you don't mind, I'm going to present that to you now. We're just going to go over my comic book collection. By age, these are the top publishers in my collection, and overwhelmingly I have Marvel books. But I've been wanting to collect more DC titles, especially the older titles, hopefully some Silver Age, Bronze Age, even Copper. But if I can, maybe pick up a few Silver Age books of Batman and Superman. But that's not a priority, but that's an area where I think I can focus as well after I have a certain amount of runs and books, Jim Lee books and certain title runs I have. Once I've completed those, I'll focus my energies on getting some of the older books. But in the Bronze Age, yeah, DC leads Marvel. In the Copper, it is overwhelmingly Marvel, and that's in large part to Jim Lee. Modern as well, large part to Jim Lee. Although I think in modern, Jim Lee does a lot of DC, and so I anticipate DC will creep up here in moderns as well. So yeah, we break it down by title. Overwhelmingly, my collection is X-Men, Uncanny X-Men and X-Men. Next, Superman and the Man of Steel, so that would be second. And then third, I would say, is Spider-Man. I got Amazing Spider-Man and Spider-Man here, 19 titles. And then Batman, New Teen Titans. Marvel Comics Presents has 9, and that's because I completed the Weapon X. There's a few titles I'm missing from that run, but for the most part, I have most of that run. And then Fantastic Four to round it out. Again, this data makes sense when you consider Jim Lee's done a big Superman and X-Men. He's worked on those titles, X-Men and Superman titles, and that's just largely reflective of that. But also, there's a John Lee and Dan. I always like Superman books, so I think I do want to see more Superman books in my collection. I don't know if they necessarily have to outweigh or outnumber the X-Men books, but I would like to see it a more balanced, I think, representation there. But yeah, I definitely am close to finishing that Jim Lee X-Men run. I think I've got about 5 or 6 issues in both Uncanny and X-Men that I need to complete his run, and then I can focus on a Batman Hush. So that's where my priorities are linked right now. The Superman Jim Lee run, the Azzarello Jim Lee run I've completed. So yeah, I think in terms of priorities right now, we're going to just finish up those Jim Lee runs, and then that'll allow me to maybe branch out and focus on some of the other artists and titles I'm going to create, collect. Top writers, Chris Claremont is the overwhelming winner. And again, it's associated with the Jim Lee collection and the runs I'm trying to complete. But also, I'm just a big X-Men fan, and I've been collecting X-Men books since I started. So that and Batman, obviously. But Batman's been kind of written and done by a lot of different people. So you don't see that reflection necessarily. Outside of Claremont, you see a lot of John Byrne here. Larry Hama, I want to see Larry Hama. I want to collect more of his works. And that's one thing this data analysis revealed, that there's sort of a deficiency in Larry Hama books. So I want to collect more of the books he's worked on. Frank Miller's kind of where maybe some more Frank Miller books. But yeah, definitely more Larry Hama and more Marv Wolfman, because I'm trying to complete the new Teen Titans run as well. Cover artists. So I've separated cover artists and pencilers. So you'll see penciler, the people that worked on the comic book itself, the interior art. But I've also separated by cover artists because they're kind of separate things now, especially in modern age books. You rarely have, with all the variant covers that are available, you rarely have the cover artist. It's rarely reflects what's being done inside the book. But I broke it down by age. So the top 5 in the modern age, Jim Lee. Then we have Adam Kubert, John Romita Jr., Joe Madureira. I was a big fan of Madureira's work, but as time went on, I kind of lost interest in the art, and that holds true for Todd McFarlane as well. You know, back in the 90s, I was a big McFarlane fan. I was buying a lot of the Spider-Man. But now I just he's still one of my favorite artists, but I just don't have that connection to his work that I used to have. And that's definitely true for Madureira. I was a big Madureira fan, and then now I've gotten cold on him. In the copper, we have Jim Lee, John Byrne. These are 2 guys I'll never lose that intense passion for. These are 2 artists that I'll always want to collect. But as you can see, I think so in the modern age, I definitely want to collect more Peach Momoko. The artists I'm really into these days, they're all Asian artists. Peach Momoko, oh man, what she does is just incredible. She's a genius. And I really love the fact that she not only does comic book characters, but she does Japanese manga characters. Like some of her work on with Naruto characters and Ghost in the Shell characters. They're just amazing. And so I really appreciate the fact that she just doesn't work in the Marvel DC medium, although she's doing exclusive Marvel covers these days, but she's able to do characters. She's aware of characters outside of the American comic book market. And for, a manga fan like me, that's just awesome. And one thing I want to point out, for those of you who use manga and anime synonymously, please stop. It's not the same. It's like me saying MCU, using MCU and Marvel comics to be the same. They're not, okay? You have cinema and you have comic books. They're 2 different genres. They're 2 different forms of art, film and comic books. So don't use anime to mean manga and vice versa. Don't mean manga to mean animation. Anime is Japanese animation, and it's a subgenre of animation that's, you know, related, linked to manga. Manga is comic book, or it's a comic form, right? But then it comes to life as anime. So there's a progression there. Sure, they're both Japanese. You can say Japanese, but don't say anime when you're trying to say manga, and vice versa. That really bugs me when I hear podcasts and they do that. And they mispronounce things like usagi. It's not usagi, it's usagi. And it's sakai. I mean, sakai, that is a little bit more forgivable, sakai, but it's sakai. That's the pronunciation. So don't, please, if you're going to say these things, know what you're saying. Reach out to somebody and find out what the proper pronunciation is. Okay, so just focusing back on the Bronze Age, we have artists Ross Andrew, John Romita Sr., John Byrne, but George Perez. So George Perez is leading my Bronze Age, and this is I'm focused on collecting his books right now. I want to complete his new Teen Titans run, as well as the Crisis on Infinite Earths and the Gods of War runs. These are kind of popular right now, in demand, just because of his tragic situation. I think a lot of collectors are keyed in on his books now, and so that's where the focus of my collecting is at the moment, along with the Jim Lee books. Jim Lee, I'm just that's a slow process. It's a priority, but it's a slow process. George Perez is sort of where I'm focused now, and in fact, I'm going to be going over another haul maybe this weekend on some books I picked up, and we'll go over what I collected. But there's a considerable amount of George Perez books in that haul. Here's another breakdown of the top 10 cover artists. And again, I want to have more presence of George Perez in my collection, as well as Mark Silvestri. And again, as I mentioned, Peach Momoko, and two other artists I'm focused on collecting in the modern era are Frank Cho and David Nakayama. Those two guys are also really killing it with their covers. It's just amazing to see how clean and realistic the digital rendering of comic book art has become. Some of these covers, when you look at them, I mean, they're just clean lines. The shading is just absolutely perfectly done. So it adds this realistic effect to comic covers. And those are two guys that are just really great artists. They're just amazing artists, like on par with, in some ways, I mean, you could make argument they're better artists than a lot of the people featured here. But of course, for me, Jim Lee, George Perez, John Byrne, these are three guys I'm focused on. Some of the older artists that I want to definitely have pop up on this top 10 list are artists like Neil Adams, John Romita Sr., and who else? Ross Andrew. I'd like to see more artists there. So hopefully, as my collection grows, I'm still going to continue to collect, John Byrne, Mark Silvestri, George Perez, but hopefully you'll see more Peach Momoko, more David Nakayama, more Frank Cho, more Neil Adams, more John Romita Sr., and the like. And finally, these are the pencilers. So Jim Lee is a little over a quarter of my collection. John Byrne is about 10%. And then everybody else is in this 2 to 5% category in the top 10. But also, you know, there's just a bunch of other artists where I just have just a minimal amount of books, 5, 6 or less books by them. So they comprise over a third of my collection. And yeah, so this was sort of a dive into my collection, and this kind of, I don't know, it definitely helped me. It definitely helped me understand, in terms of who I'm collecting, what titles I'm focused on. It reinforced that, but it also kind of visually gave me the proportions of where that focus was, and revealed to me. So in my mind, like, hey, I want to collect this artist, but the data revealed that I don't have many books of that creator. And so, yeah, it kind of said, okay, rather than just kind of pick up stuff randomly, it's now given me an additional focus of, okay, when you go to the shop and you see this book and you see this book, keep in mind, this is the book that this is an artist you don't have representation in your collection for, so maybe you should buy this one rather than this one where you have, you have some books already. So I hope maybe you're doing that and you have a good understanding. I have a really small collection. 291 books is not a big collection by any means. And I don't think it'll get too much bigger. I think I would want to stop myself when I hit 500 books. So we're really talking about, adding about 200 more books into the collection over the next couple of years, and being satisfied with that. And if I want to pick up more, maybe at that point I'd have to look into trading and doing and whatnot. But yeah, with those 200 books, I just really want everything I bring into the collection to be really focused, or something I can move to bring, to trade up and get the keys that I want. I haven't had much success in terms of selling, but again, I haven't really put in the effort. But I found that Instagram, unless you have a huge following, it's not really effective. eBay, I stopped because the books I wanted to get rid of, they just don't have any demand, and they're not commanding the prices that I'd be willing to part with those books for. So I'm thinking at this point, like, I've actually gotten rid of and traded for the comics I didn't want in my collection, for some that I did want in my collection, but I still have a bunch that are just kind of in that area where, like, they're nice books for my collection. I do have some kind of connection to them, but if they're also books that I would want to trade and maybe move out for books that I want. So yeah, I may think about trying to connect with comic book collectors online in my local area, and just organizing a trade meetup where people in my same situation, they have comics, they're in their collection, they're probably willing to part with them for something they want. And so maybe I have something they want, we can kind of get together and make some deals and trades. But I imagine to effectively do that, I have to have more books that people want. And so a lot of the commons that I have, luckily, a lot of the comments that I have are for me, for they're ones I want in my collection, but there are some that probably will be hard to move. Okay, I hope you found this video useful. Let me know what you think in the comments. Let me know if you have similar a similar spreadsheet at home where you're collecting data and you have everything listed out by price, grade, and all that. You maybe share the insights that you found through that analysis. But that's something fun to do, and I'm glad to have shared my data analytics process on my collection with you. Thanks for watching.